Hi, honor students. These are your instructions for the group Capstone project, which we will be working on for the remainder of the school year. If at any point in the process you have questions, we have quite a few work days, so don't hesitate to ask. I'll be available. I'm just going to go over the overview of the project with you, and then today you're going to get into your groups, which I'm going to post on Classroom. They're going to be the same groups you were in for research all year. And you'll also have time today to just kind of brainstorm and also talk to each other and make sure that you can communicate with each other. And then I'll talk about tomorrow going forward in a moment here. So I'd like you to take a look at the bold sentence at the top of these instructions, where it says, how does a theme function in key works of literature to demonstrate foundational elements of the American experience? So yesterday you guys filled in those capstone documents, and there were a lot of really great ideas in there. And I saw a lot of things such as identity, individualism, determination, the importance of nature, all ideas that came from our units. But I want to emphasize that your project is not just a presentation about like individualism, for example. What you need to determine is how does individualism show itself or function in the pieces we read, and how does individualism fit into the American experience. I'm going to give you guys an example of one of the capstone projects from a couple years ago. And no, you may not use this thesis statement, but it just gives you an idea of how this would work. I had a student who said that due to the wealth inequality that favors the elite, the American dream is not achievable for everybody. So that was her thesis statement. That was her answer to this question, which you guys in groups are going to be coming up with and then supporting. And if you think about that thesis statement, her theme is the American dream. But her presentation wasn't just the American dream. You know, what about it? She made the argument that it wasn't ideally achievable by everybody. So that's an example of something you can do. I'm going to read these paragraphs too, and that might make it a little clearer for you. As we journeyed through American literature this year, we encountered several different themes that manifested themselves in a variety of ways throughout the text we explore, such as the ones I mentioned. In your research groups, you will explore one specific theme and its function in at least 4 texts. And so you're going to decide on your theme, you're going to create a thesis or argument, a one-sentence statement, and then you're going to tell me in your presentation how that's shown in 4 different pieces, 3 of which we read in class, and then 1 of your own choosing. I'll be giving you more instructions on that in a little bit. Your task is to carefully consider how your theme functions in the 4 texts you choose. You will create your own original thesis or argument, making a claim about your theme and defending its purpose in your sources. All right. So this is something that if we were in a normal school situation, everyone would do this individually, but you guys are, I guess, kind of lucky in a way in that you get to work on this with a group, and so you do get to collaborate. Just thinking ahead, because I talked about, the overview of this project, the thesis statement, you might be wondering how you're going to write the thesis statement, if you're going to be doing it correctly. Again, today is a day to communicate with your groups, brainstorm a bit, and then just the thesis statement isn't due until tomorrow night, Wednesday night. So you have plenty of time to work on that. And at any point today or tomorrow, it would be a great time to email me what your group is thinking for your thesis, and I can give you feedback and tell you if you're on the right track. Okay. Moving on to the perspectives and texts we studied this year. Remember, when you're making your thesis statement, you need to connect it to things that we read. So, for example, that example thesis that I read to you about the inequity in wealth, favoring the elite and how that ties to the American dream. Obviously, The Great Gatsby would be a piece there that would support that thesis. But also, I would argue probably passing The Negro Artist and The Racial Mountain, maybe even The Things They Carried, if you wanted to argue about the unfairness of the draft. Just make sure that you can connect it to several different texts that we read. Now, as you're working on this, in years past, when we were actually in school, I was able to provide students with books and texts. If you need access to these, most of these you would be able to Google. For example, like all of the brooding romantic short stories are in the public domain at this point. You can just Google them and bring up the texts. The Great Gatsby, unfortunately, will not be in the public domain until next year. So it's very close to it, but not yet. So if you need a quotation or something like that from one of these texts, let me know. I can help you access it. All right, and then one final reminder. You're making a claim about your theme using a complete sentence. That's your thesis statement. For example, the theme isn't individuality in and of itself. The thesis isn't just individuality. What are you saying about individuality and how it shows up in these texts? What does it mean in these texts? How does being an American tie to individuality? I would start with just looking at the documents that your classmates filled in yesterday for ideas, talk to your group, and again, I highly encourage you, you really should, I'm not making it mandatory, but you truly should email me a draft of your thesis statement before you submit it so that I can give you feedback. All right, so moving along to the timeline. Today, I'm introducing the project, you're watching this video, and you're forming your groups. Again, they're the same research groups from all year. I'll be posting those on Classroom as a reminder. I'm going to add this now. You really should also contact people in your group and start to brainstorm. Make sure that all of you can communicate with each other either via email or a shared Google Doc or something like that. Tomorrow on the 13th, all you have to do is submit your thesis by the end of the day, but that takes some thought. You should be emailing me drafts, ideas. That's going to be 5 points in the assignment category. It's due by midnight. Then on Thursday, there's a planning guide that you're going to complete. That's 10 points in the assignment category, and that's due by midnight. Both of these and the final presentation, since you're working in a group, I only need one submission per group, just like every other group project we've done this year, so that you're meant to collaborate on these. And I'm going to skip ahead in this document to the planning guide, which is here. I will post it as a separate assignment that you can edit, but so that you can type in your answers. But once you come up with your thesis, this will help you to brainstorm how exactly you're going to present on it and kind of make sure that you're meeting the requirements of the project. More instructions to come on that on Thursday. All right. Then looking to next week. Next week, you guys have a full week of class, Monday through Friday. And so Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday are all going to be work days for you guys to work on your slide presentations in your groups. This should be plenty of time because you only need 7 slides. And so 3 full work days on that, you should be okay with that. These presentations are due to Google Classroom by midnight on Wednesday, again, 1 per group. And then on Thursday and Friday next week, we're going to do the presentations. And the way it will work and we'll decide this closer to the date. I know some groups you may want to get it done right away on Thursday. That's fine. Some of you might want to wait till Friday. So we'll figure out like the timing and who's going when, probably on the 20th. But on Thursday the 21st, we'll do 3 or 4 presentations. And on the 22nd, we'll do the remainder of the presentations. So the way this will work is that I will set a class Google Meet during our class time. There should not be any conflicts with any other class because we've been instructed not to hold Zoom meetings if it's not our class time. If there is a conflict, let me know, because if you are not present during your assigned time, you will not get the points for this project. Okay, so there shouldn't be a conflict. But if for some reason there is, let me know and I will take care of that and make sure you can be here for our class time. So the way this will work is, let's say you're presenting on Thursday. You volunteered, you want to get it over with on Thursday. You do have to stay for the duration of the 50-minute period. You can't just present yours and leave, because you do have to give an audience to the other presentations. But then on the day you're not presenting, you do not need to be there. So you just need to attend the meet on whatever day you're presenting, but you do need to be there the whole time. Okay, if that makes sense. The way this will work, and I'll get into more details next week. I also need to do kind of a trial run of this. But there is a way that you can present your screen so that it takes over the Google Meet so that everyone can just see the presentation and then you can talk over the slides. So when you're presenting your slides, no one's going to see your face. They're just going to see your slides. Again, you guys kind of have it easy this way because in the past these were individual presentations in front of the class, but this will be done virtually with you and your group members talking over your slides, and everyone else in the meet is just going to see the slides. Again, we'll talk more about the logistics of that and who's going when closer to the date. So I just went over all this. In order to receive credit, you must be present the entire time at your assigned class meet, whether that's Thursday or Friday. Whatever day you're not presenting is a free day for you. And then, just so I don't forget, the following week, we're off Monday for Memorial Day. And then the last 2 days of school are the 26th and 27th. And I have decided to make those make-up work days. So if there are any assignments that you missed, that you weren't able to do, late work from third quarter, perhaps, if I've talked to you about that, that's what those last 2 days will be for. Okay. So let's go over the requirements checklist here. Number 1, your group will create your own thesis from the ideas you generate. The thesis must be original, specific, arguable, thought-provoking, and all of them must be approved by me by the 14th. So due on the 13th. Again, share it with my email. You may be wondering, is my thesis these things? I can help you with that. Then you're going to do the planning guide, which again is due by Thursday night. Now in your Google Slides, the rest of these from 3 on are all about your Google Slides. So in your Google Slides, you need to use a minimum of 3 texts of American literature we read in class to support your thesis. You will also include a minimum of 1 outside source for a total of at least 4 sources. This could be one of your independent reading novels in your group if it fits with the theme and the thesis you're going for, or it could be a credible nonfiction source from Google or the databases. So then going along with 3 and 4, from each of those 4 sources, you will include at least 1 quotation for a minimum of 4 quotations total. Okay. I do mean by that direct quotations, not paraphrase. So then you'll integrate those quotations in your presentation, and then with them, you'll tell us, how does your theme work in the text you chose? So you'll elaborate on those quotations you picked, right? Why are they significant? How does the theme manifest itself in those quotations? Why is it important? To come back to that example of the American Dream thesis, there's inequity, and American society is ruled by the elite. Just thinking of an example from that for The Great Gatsby, if you had a quotation from chapter 1, where Nick first sees the Buchanan's mansion, and he talks about the palaces of East Egg glittering fashionably across the water. That could be a quotation that you pick, and then in your elaboration, you could talk about the divide between East and West Egg, the language choice there, even then the divide between the eggs and the city. So that's what I mean by that. Elaborate on your quotations. How do they support your thesis? Now, you also need to include personal and societal connections throughout your presentation. You can do those like in one slide of its own, or you could do those throughout. It's really up to you. But how does your theme connect with you and or society? And by society, I mean modern society, so things that you're seeing today. This could be a good way to find your fourth source. If you wanted to make a modern connection to whatever your thesis is, you could certainly find an outside source or article that's about a current situation that could fit there. So then you're going to develop an engaging Google Slides presentation. As I've talked about with you guys all year, all of those research presentations have led to this, and this is how you were graded on them, where you need interesting visuals, and that includes fonts, colors, pictures, and little text. So I don't want to see blocks of text or paragraphs. Your speaking should fill in the information. Now, of course, you may make note cards. You can type what you need to say for your part of the presentation on a Google Doc. You could write out everything you're going to say on a piece of paper, and you can have that ready to go when you're on the Google Meet. So this, of course, this doesn't need to be memorized, especially since we're doing this virtually. But I don't want to see slides with just a wall of text, but more of bullet points, short points, with the quotations, of course, that you're including. But then a lot of your argument and elaboration you should be speaking about rather than just typing it all out on the slides, if that makes sense. I am going to post an example capstone project just so you can see what I mean that did this well. Don't model it after the example too much. Just look at it as I'm posting it as a way for you to see like what I mean by visually appealing. But this is very modified from what I've done the last couple of years because of this situation. So your presentation should include a minimum of 7 slides. That's it. Your title slide, introduction slide that should include your thesis, a minimum of 1 slide for each of the 4 sources, and a works cited slide. Another thing I'll be looking for, and that you did for your modern transcendentalism presentation, so you practiced, is that the Google Slides presentation must include parenthetical citations for all paraphrased and quoted information. Okay, just like your modern transcendentalism presentation. For example, quote, author's last name, parentheses. Don't forget that. If you do, that's a couple points off. You should also include source announcements when you're presenting your information to the class, meaning that when you're talking about the 3 pieces of American Lit and your outside source, when you bring in that quotation from the text, you should say where it comes from. So, for example, in chapter 1 of F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, Nick notices that the palaces of East Egg glittered fashionably across the water. When I said in chapter 1 of Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby, that was my source announcement. So you should just be saying where your information comes from, what text it comes from, who wrote it. as you're presenting. Then you need a correctly formatted works cited slide in MLA format that includes your 3 class texts plus 1 outside source for a total of 4 sources. If you're having trouble with that, let me know, but we've done quite a bit of practice with that at this point. And then again, of course you may use notes when presenting, but practice ahead of time. Decide who will be saying what, who will do which part, be familiar, try to speak conversationally. Everyone in your group does have to speak at one point, so that's one thing you'll need to decide is how you'll divvy up the slides and who will say what. Then here we have this handy rubric, so as you're working with your group, you check all these off. If you meet all these requirements, it's 15 essay points. So in terms of content, you need your thesis, you need examples supporting your thesis from 4 sources, explaining how your theme works in the texts, why it's significant, why your quote is significant, why it's important. Connecting the 4 sources together and including those personal societal examples. So basically it's, do you argue your thesis throughout with those sources? Presentation-wise, title slide, it should contain your theme, topic, and members' names. They're easy to read and engaging, colors and visuals used effectively, presenters speak using an audible volume and comfortable rate, meaning we can hear you, you're not speaking too quickly, and you sound like you're knowledgeable. And then inclusion of sources, you refer to 3 class texts, you have your outside source, you include those parenthetical citations, you also reference them orally, and you have the MLA, works cited slide. So that is a total of 15 essay points. And then we're down to the planning guide, which I mentioned previously, and that's it. For the in-class individual presentations, this was like a 15-page packet, but it's been pared down quite a bit. All right, so today you've watched this video. I will be posting the groups. I'll be posting some example slides of like visually pleasing slides to give you a model. Today, contact your group, start brainstorming, make sure everyone's on the same page, decide how you're going to work together and collaborate. And then tomorrow you got time to work on your thesis as well. Please email me. I'd be happy to look at, give feedback on potential thesis statements. And if you have any questions in general, also please email me. And I'll be talking to you guys soon.